Welcome, bienvenue, welcome one and all to another one of my live streams. I don't know why I was caught out by that, but anyway, I'm very pleased to have with me in the virtual studio Vicky Poole, which most of you all know has been a long-time friend and business associate. But I want to draw your attention to carbon, the stuff that's all around us, but particularly with reference to tenders and responding to them. I'm going to throw the ball straight over to Vicky. Tell us more.
Well, it's wonderful to start to see so many organizations taking responsibility for their carbon. And one of the questions that's been asked around for a while now, over the last 10 years, is what do you do to ensure that you're acting in alignment with your own carbon reduction goals and aspirations? And this is something that, councils have been asking suppliers to do for quite a while. Now they actually require it on a carbon reduction form and template. And when I say require, I require, at the moment, it's like a loose sense. They like you to have a carbon reduction plan. The bunny ears are going. But by 2030, it will be mandatory that you're carbon neutral, that your projects are carbon negative, you report on your carbon, and you are environmentally and socially responsible. But of course, I hear you all saying, well, that's 2030, Vic. That's 6 years away. Well, it is and it's not. It is and it's not. So whilst, yes, I completely agree that 2030 minus 2024 is 6. Steps that need to be done, right? So in April,
you could see your maths are on point, but it is. Yeah. It's a million miles away. Mars will be in a different dimension.
So in April, you are required to have a carbon reduction plan, even if your response is, "Yeah, I know that I need to have it. Here are my loose terms," but it's non-committal unless your contracts are over £5 million, in which case you really should have one, and you should have a lot of reporting done by now already. And then the next stage is like 2025, and that it takes the limit down to £1 million contracts, and then it's over duration. So if you have a 3-year contract, and then by the time you get to 2030, everybody will have a carbon reduction plan, report on carbon, and offset anything that they can't deem as an emissions. Now, if anyone's seen the carbon, it looks very cabinet office-y, in which case here's an Excel spreadsheet that's pasted into a Word document, fill out this form. And it talks about scope 1, 2, and 3, but it doesn't define scope 1, 2, and 3 in the document. So a lot of people think, oh my God, what am I responding to? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. The 3 scopes, 3, 2, 1 in emissions, and where you go to find information, and what my obligations are as a bid writer to help you to be compliant, and who I have in my kit bag in terms of PS and consulting.
Okay.
I can tell that Gareth is completely enthralled by the moves to save the planet and monitor his own carbon.
I would love to. Do you know what? But joking aside, it's a movement that you can't ignore, and there is goodness behind it. It's not like we're just doing it to play the numbers. If you've got a conscience about the state that human beings have left this planet in thus far, the fact that the next generation, Vic's own children and mine, have to inherit the mess we left behind, then you should want to have a stake in it. But even if you just want to do it from playing by the rule book, there are benefits, are there not?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I'm very much of wanting to save the planet. I'm one of those kind of eco warriors. To have a stake in it is wonderful. You don't lose points at the minute for not having one because it's not mandatory. That will change moving forward. But yeah. Anyways, should we talk about the 3 scopes and kind of give people a bit of an idea about what they need to report on?
Let's do this. The 3 scopes. Lay it on me.
The 3 scopes. Numero uno. It's physical. It's things that you control. So that's burning fuel, fleet vehicles, and things like that. Scope 2, it's emissions that you use indirectly from like energy or purchases like associated to. So that's electricity to power your building. Where do you get that? Is that sustainable? Now we can all go to our energy companies and say, yes, we pay the green levy. That doesn't be sustainable. What they're really talking about there is, are you solar paneled? Is it ground source heat pumping? Have you got a borehole? Stuff like that.
It's greenwashing, really.
Easy. And then scope 3 is emissions not produced by the company itself and not the result of activities that you own. Now, I get a bit lost and confused with this because for me, it doesn't really make sense.
Well, it doesn't really make sense to me.
So, an example, when a company buys and uses products, it comes from the supply chain.
Right.
Now, one could argue that if I'm buying from a supplier, that supplier is responsible for their own chain.
Yes, one could argue that.
Yes, because by them being my scope 3, their business operations and their manufacturing of that product that I'm purchasing would then be their scope 1 and 2.
Yes.
Now, whilst in public sector and the suppliers that are responding to public sector contracts, there are very few contracts that only have, but there are very few suppliers that only have a public sector arm.
Right.
And in my humble, and this is just purely my opinion, I know I'm voicing my opinion, people. I know that's dangerous. I know. By Crown Commercial Services asking for a carbon reduction plan for the council's project, the local government authority, the LGA's project and contracts, I think it's a way to positively enforce carbon reduction across their industries.
Okay.
Because if you are reporting on your carbon as a business, you are not going to go, well, this is the little bit here for public sector, and I have this over here for commercial that I'm just not going to touch. Because when you look at where you buy your energy from, that will affect both industries. When you look at how you produce your own goods and how you sell them and how you deliver them to the client site, it's going to be the same across both industries, both verticals. So I think this is a way that government and councils can positively influence their suppliers to be healthier for the environment, which I think we can all agree would be a plus.
Always, of course.
Yes, and also from the council's perspective, the local government authority's perspective, it also means that they can demonstrate that they are choosing ethical suppliers, which isn't just a tick box exercise. It used to be, it's not anymore. This carbon reduction plan takes it from a tick box exercise and asks you to put your money where your mouth is.
Oh.
This is my plan. These are my commitments. These are my statements. And here's how I'm going to do it.
All right. So this sounds like if you're going to do this properly, you need to spend some time and, dare I say it, some money getting the right information.
Well, I'm actually pulling together a whole series of information on this because I get asked about this quite a lot. So there are free calculators online that you can use to understand your scope 1 and yes, that's right. Anything to do with your scope 3s, it needs a little bit more understanding of their suppliers, or your suppliers rather, and where your business fits into that as a whole. And that comes with a little bit of PSing consulting. So I'm in the process of training up one of my team who can then be able to advise organizations on this. So when this becomes a requirement in April, you've got someone here at Tender Response who can answer all the complicated questions and know all of those carbon reduction forms as intimately as I know Tender Docs.
Well, quite right. So carbon reduction, it's going to become almost a default part of any tendering process here on in, I would have thought, isn't it?
It is. And be very mindful, offset and carbon reduction, they're not the same thing.
Right. Okay.
So I remember
one's a subset of the other.
Very, very confidently saying
one's a subset of the other.
So yes and no.
Oh.
So emissions is continuous improvement, looking to make a fundamental change to your business moving forward. And the offset is the entry fee that one pays in order to offset the impact of the last 12, 18 months. It's a bit like doing 50 press-ups because you had a Mars bar yesterday.
Yeah, but they don't equate. And in the same way, I'm not entirely sure that the carbon offset entirely equates for a whole bunch of pollution that you shoved in the atmosphere.
It doesn't. And that's a really important thing. So when you look back, so I'm going to get this regulation wrong. I'm just going to pull it up here because I am going to get it wrong in my head. And I want to make sure that I'm telling everybody the most appropriate information. One moment, caller. Right, so carbon offsets are not applicable to the PN or PPN 0621 form. Now, what that is when it's at home is the carbon reduction form. So when you look at the carbon reduction plan that Crown Commercial Services asks you to complete, any of your carbon offsets that you do, so you planted a mangrove forest in this African country, brilliant, thank you very much. It's not applicable to put on the carbon reduction form because it doesn't have a direct impact here in the UK. And there are lots of other little loopholes. Right. Now, if you're carbon offsetting, it's brilliant. You do that for your business. Does it then mean that you also need to manage your emissions? Absolutely.
Quite right.
So if you can offset your previous year, brilliant. You manage your emissions, which means you're managing your business moving forward. Now, at the moment, your emissions could be 10 kilograms of carbon or maybe more.
Right.
Right. You can offset your 10 kilograms, which is great. That doesn't then mean that you're carbon neutral because you're still emitting carbon. The next year, your emissions could be 8 kilograms, in which case you could offset your 8 kilograms. Right. But you're still emitting carbon. So you're not a carbon neutral company. You are a carbon neutral company when your emissions are zero.
Yes, and it's very important. There's no argument about it. It's not near to zero. It's not somewhat like zero. It is zero.
Yes. So what does a carbon zero company look like? A carbon zero company has, that they're fully powered by solar panels. The building that they operate out of is completely eco and sustainable. Products and services are delivered through electric transport. You know, that's the kind of company that is carbon neutral. There are a couple of others. So I hear that a taxi firm in London is going for their carbon neutral status because all of their vehicles are electric and they're powered. They get charged by solar panels, and they ask all of their they ask their passengers to pay an offset levy for them physically being in London, and that's their green levy for being in London, which is like 60p for the day, that they can be added to their taxi charge and then they can pay all in one. So that's very these things are
thinking. Very forward thinking.
All right, very forward thinking.
I mean, and have you put, dare I say, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, anything about this, or can you put something about this on your tender response resources page?
Well, yes, I can. So there is the process of finalizing that's coming out on Friday, which is looking at it's when you look at your emissions, it comes as part of your social value, believe it or not, in terms of what your business is doing. So I talk about social value is a wider whole in terms of how you pick up more marks there, because that scoring is changing as well, as we know. And in there, I talk about your carbon and how you can understand your impact more. I'm going to be popping in some links there of links that I use and I suggest that my clients use, just so that they can get a feel of what their impact is. Now, at this stage, everything's free. I'm just sharing resource, sharing knowledge, because they say that sharing is caring, and I firmly believe that as well. Okay. And then off the back of that, if anybody wants a copy of the carbon reduction plan or any of the templates that are available through Crown Commercial Services, and they don't know where to go to find the templates online, you can pop us an email at admin@tenderresponse.co.uk. Guys, we'll send you across a copy of the form so you can have it. And there will be forms appearing on my resources page. My website is not under further development because I have a new website and going live next week. So I know, I've finally bit the bullet and I'm having a brand new website. Woo! You see, most girls buy shoes, I buy websites.
As it seems. And also, if you have that urgent carbon reduction question and you really need an answer to it, of course, there is the tender response, fully womaned WhatsApp hotline. Don't call it. Please send a message with your question. Make it pithy and brief and to the point, and you will get a response, usually within 12 hours, if not sooner, from someone on the team. And the point about this is what my dear sweet Vic here and her team are about is getting you information that enables you to make the right decisions. And the decision might be that this tender is not for you, but better you find out earlier than later. Otherwise, you could spend a lot of time and effort filling it out only to find that you can't in fact do an SLA of 1 hour because you're in fact located 60 miles away from the target, or that you can't possibly provide that sort of level of backup should things go wrong because you just don't physically have the capability. Whatever it is, you need to find out in advance, and tender response are all about that. So I'm going to take off these banners. Please don't hesitate to get in contact with Vicky so she can steer you right. And it may be just that you think, well, actually, I can go for a tender. I never thought I was able to, because it can provide you a solid income for a number of years straight if you win it. I believe she's up to about 80% success rate, but obviously that's only on tenders that she's chosen that are following the standards that she lays out. Please get in contact. I'm going to quickly put up the tender response hotline again. Contact her there, and also find her on LinkedIn, where she'll be pleased to be connected to you. I've found this riveting. Never thought I'd say carbon reduction was riveting, but it was quite interesting. And also learning more information about what you can or can't do with an attender is always useful. I would say to the rest of you, I know it's Wednesday. It is hump day. We've got 2 more days. Let's get through this week, power through it, and be as successful as we can be. But at the same time, watch our mental health. Until next time, thank you so much for your time, Vicky. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.